They acted like losing you meant nothing, but now they're learning what silence really sounds like. My friends, let that land in your chest for a second, because you and I both know people rarely show their cards when they still think the game's in their hands. They pretended like walking away from you was easy. They smiled through the exit like it didn't sting. They left your messages on read, flaunted their distractions, maybe even lined up their next option like you were some disposable chapter. But here's the truth. They didn't move on. They just performed better than you. And now, in the quiet, when no one's clapping for them, when the posts get fewer likes, when the crowd thins out, they feel it. Your absence, loud, heavy, unignorable. You see, we've been sold this lie, that if they leave you, it means you weren't good enough, that their rejection defines your worth, that their silence equals strength. But folks, let me break something wide open. Walking away doesn't make someone strong. Staying numb just means they're scared to feel. The truth is, they didn't reject you. They rejected the mirror you held up, the one that reflected all the parts they couldn't face in themselves. You were the calm in their chaos, the consistency in their confusion, the truth in their noise, and they didn't know what to do with that kind of power. So they ran, not because they didn't feel something, but because they felt too much. And instead of rising to match your depth, they retreated to shallow waters, where everything looks safe, but nothing grows. But here's where your story flips. You didn't beg, you didn't chase, you didn't collapse into pieces and throw a tantrum for attention. No, my friend, you sat still, you breathed, you hurt, but you healed. And that stillness, that calm, that unshaken, quiet rise, it became the thunder in their skies, because nothing haunts a person more than the one they thought they'd forget, glowing silently in their absence. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy," and that's what you did. You didn't fight back with chaos. You didn't stoop, shout, or scramble. You got better. You got quieter. You got focused. And that, my friends, is the kind of power that doesn't need noise to be noticed. Let me give you a little metaphor here. Imagine being a warm fire in a freezing winter, and someone walks away thinking they can handle the cold. At first, the rush of freedom feels good. They laugh, they dance, they post. But after a while, the chill sets in. The silence starts to bite. And suddenly, they remember your warmth. Not just how it felt, but how rare it was. That's where you are now. You're the warmth they walked away from. And now, they're out in the cold, pretending they're not freezing. And maybe you're still hurting. Maybe part of you still wonders, did I ever matter? But let me remind you, you didn't just matter. You were the moment. You were the peace. You were the healing they never deserved. And now that you've pulled away, they'll start to feel it. Slowly, quietly, deeply. So today we rise, not for revenge, but for respect, self-respect. Today we walk in power, in silence, in unshakable presence. You don't need them to cry to prove they miss you. You don't need their apology to validate your worth. Their regret is already speaking loud in the background. They just don't know how to admit it yet. Say it with me right now, my friends. I am the lesson. Drop it in the comments. Type it, feel it, own it. And if this message shook something in your soul, press that like button, hit subscribe, and stay with me. because what's coming next will make sure they never forget what they lost. Number 1. Their indifference is a lie. It's just delayed regret. People don't move on. They just pretend better than you think. My friends, let that quote crack through the surface of your doubt, because I know, right now, there's a part of you still wondering how they did it so easily, how they smiled while you cried, how they walked away like you were nothing but an old song they got tired of. They acted calm, cool, unshaken. But what you don't see is what happens when the audience leaves and the lights go down. That calm, that was just their costume. And behind it, panic, doubt, the ghost of your presence still echoing in rooms they thought they'd forget you in. See, there's this lie floating around in dating culture, that the one who moves on faster wins. That silence means they don't care, that their dry replies, their lack of effort, their distant posts all scream, "I'm over you." But let's break that down for what it really is. Indifference is rarely the truth. It's often just delayed regret dressed in ego's finest jacket. You were there. You showed up with love, with softness, with effort. You brought presence into their chaos, and instead of appreciating the rarity of what they had, they tried to downplay it. They convinced themselves you were replaceable, that someone else could give them the same energy without the emotional responsibility. But here's the secret they'll never admit aloud. They didn't reject you. They rejected their own readiness to receive you. Imagine this. You're a priceless painting hanging in a room with broken lighting. The person standing there can't see the beauty, the depth, the color, because the light in them is off. So they shrug and say, "This isn't that special," and they walk out. Not because the art wasn't valuable, but because they couldn't see clearly enough to understand what was in front of them. That's what happened. You were the art. Their lighting was broken. And now they're trying to pretend the gallery doesn't haunt them. You might be asking yourself things like, why didn't they fight for me? Why do they seem fine while I'm over here drowning in emotions? Did they ever care at all? These questions are normal, but they come from a dangerous place. The belief that someone else's ability to fake calm equals truth. That's where the pain multiplies. That's where your worth gets tangled in their performance. But let me tell you something real, my friend. People grieve privately what they took for granted publicly. And just because they're not posting sad quotes or writing you long confessions doesn't mean they're not being haunted by your silence. In fact, it's the silence that cuts deeper than words ever could. When someone is used to controlling people with attention, with drama, with emotional reaction, and they get nothing, that absence becomes their reckoning. The truth is, rejection often isn't clarity, it's confusion in disguise. A lot of people push away what they actually want because they're afraid they can't measure up. They fear vulnerability. They fear being seen too deeply. They fear the intimacy that doesn't come with chaos or games. So instead of leaning in, they bail. They pretend it's nothing. But every time they scroll past your photo, every time they feel the urge to text and don't, every time they remember how calm you stayed when they were expecting chaos, a little voice whispers, "You messed up." It's not easy to believe this when your heart still aches. It's not easy to accept that someone who once held you close can now treat you like a stranger. But let me offer you this. Your calmness didn't go unnoticed. It didn't make you invisible. It made you unforgettable. Because in a world of people screaming for attention, begging for closure, and falling apart just to be seen, you stood still. You didn't flinch. And that gets under their skin like nothing else. But yes, it's hard. It's hard to not text first. It's hard not to peek at their stories. It's hard to not send that paragraph that's burning on your tongue. But what you're doing isn't weakness. It's strength. The kind of strength that says, I will not beg you to realize my worth. And that kind of strength, it shakes them, slowly, then all at once. You are not their lesson because you exploded. You are their lesson because you didn't. Because you didn't fight for a seat at a table they weren't even ready to sit at. And now they sit there alone, looking at that empty chair, wondering how they let the best things slip through their fingers. They'll post their best selfies, try to win the breakup, act unbothered. But the silence will get loud. The gap you left will start to echo. And when they see you glowing without them, when they see you rise without bitterness, when they realize the love you gave is something they won't find in someone else's validation, they'll feel it, deeply, quietly, shamefully. So today, you stop waiting for their message. You stop hoping for that apology. You stop shrinking your peace just to make them wonder. You let your stillness speak. Let your life become the proof. And let their delay in feeling your absence be the karma you never had to create. Say it with me right now. They'll feel it later. Type it in the comments. Show them. Show yourself. Show the world around you that your presence has weight, and your absence. It hits even harder. And if this truth stirred something inside you, if it made your heart exhale just a little, press that like button, subscribe, and stay with me. Because what we're about to unpack next will flip the way you handle every ghost, every game, and every person who thought you were easy to forget. Number 2. Rejection isn't a reflection, it's redirection. The universe didn't say no, it said not here. My friends, let that one sink all the way into your soul. Because I know what rejection can do to your spirit. It feels like a punch you didn't see coming. It makes you question your worth, your beauty, your energy. You replay every text, every moment, wondering where you went wrong. And the world will tell you that if they walked away, it must mean something's wrong with you. That if they didn't choose you, you weren't enough. But I'm here to call that out for what it is. A lie disguised as logic. Rejection isn't proof that you're unworthy. It's not the universe slamming a door in your face just to be cruel. It's a divine reroute, a redirection, a gentle, or sometimes brutal, way of being pulled out of something that didn't deserve your magic in the first place. You didn't lose them, my friend. They lost access to you. And sure, at first it doesn't feel that way. It feels like they're the ones who won. They got to leave. They got to pull away. They got to make the decision. But here's the twist. They only thought they had the power. You see, when someone rejects you, they're not making a statement about your worth. They're making a confession about their capacity to handle real love, real intimacy, real presence. They looked at the depth you brought and blinked. They weren't ready for that kind of emotional richness. So they bailed, they fumbled, they confused your calm for disinterest, your stability for boredom, your consistency for predictability. But what they didn't realize is that your love was a rare frequency, one they won't just replace with a swipe or a rebound. Because the truth is, you weren't denied, you were protected. Imagine being given a map and every road leads to a dead end except one. You think the blocked paths are failures, but in reality, they're filters. They're keeping you from wasting more of your time, more of your heart, more of your peace. That's what this rejection was. It wasn't the end of your story. It was a plot twist, and it's taking you somewhere better, somewhere real, somewhere you won't have to beg to be seen. I know. Part of you still thinks, but what if I just tried harder? What if I was more attractive, more available, less intense? That's the fear talking. That's the wound whispering. But here's your truth. You didn't lose because you were too much. You lost because they were too little. And that no you received, that was the spark, the beginning of your glow-up. The moment the universe said, watch what happens when they stop holding on to the wrong person. And it's hard, I won't lie. The glow-up journey isn't always pretty. It's late nights, tight chests, deep breaths. It's resisting the urge to check their page. It's reminding yourself every damn day that your story isn't over just because they walked out of the chapter. You're not just healing, you're building, you're rising, you're evolving, and while they're still busy repeating patterns, chasing distractions, or pretending they're fine, you're becoming someone even you didn't see coming. Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." That's Stoicism at its core. You don't control who leaves, but you control who rises from it. And you, my friend, are rising like never before. Because this rejection, it didn't destroy you. It introduced you to yourself. It stripped away the illusion that someone else holds your worth. And in its place, it planted something deeper, self-respect. So don't look back, wishing it played out differently. Don't wish for them to come running back just so you can feel wanted. Let them go, not out of bitterness, but out of reverence for who you're becoming. You're no longer chasing closure. You are the closure. You're no longer begging to be loved. You are the love. And you're no longer asking the universe why they left. You're thanking it for making room for something better. Say it with me now. Rejection redirected me. Drop it in the comments. Let it be the mantra that silences your doubt. Let it be the reminder that everything that left your life simply cleared the path for everything that's meant to find you. Press that like button if you're done mistaking rejection for loss, and subscribe if you're ready to start seeing it as your greatest plot twist. And stay with me, my friends, because what's coming next, that's where the power really starts to shift. Number 3, they don't miss you yet because you never gave them space to. Sometimes the only way they feel your worth is through absence. My friends, this one right here, this is the gut punch most people need to hear, but almost nobody wants to accept. You've been showing up. You've been calling, texting, liking, watching their stories, checking their page like it's your job. You're not doing it to beg. You're doing it because you still care. Because part of you is hoping they'll notice, that they'll wake up. But let's be honest, they won't miss you if you never leave. They can't feel your absence if you never stop showing up. And that's not love anymore. That's a leak, a slow drip of your energy into someone who no longer deserves it. Here's the hard truth, folks. Most people don't value presence. They only value memory. As long as you're available, responding, reacting, showing up like clockwork, you're keeping yourself from becoming rare. You're stopping them from feeling your weight. And when someone never has to experience the silence you leave behind, they'll keep assuming you're just one call away. Let me paint you a picture. Imagine a song playing in the background all day long. It's beautiful, it's familiar, but it never stops. It's always there. Eventually, you stop hearing it. You tune it out. But the moment it cuts off, the moment there's silence, suddenly your ears perk up. You miss it. You notice it. That's how humans are wired. We don't miss what's present. We miss what disappears. We miss what we no longer have access to. And I get it. You're scared. You're thinking, if I stop reaching out, they'll forget me. If I don't reply, they'll move on. If I go quiet, someone else will take my place. But listen carefully. If your silence can be replaced, your presence was never valued. And I know that stings. But sometimes pain tells the truth louder than love ever could. You think your check-ins are reminders of how much you care. But from their side, they're reminders that you're still there, still waiting, still available, still emotionally attached. And as long as they know you haven't truly left, they don't have to feel the loss. They don't have to face themselves. They don't have to wonder. That's why they don't miss you yet, because you've never given them a reason to. Let me drop a quote on you from Lao Tzu. When nothing is done, nothing is left undone. That's Stoicism too. The art of doing nothing and letting the weight of your silence do what no amount of explaining ever could. Silence is strategy. It's presence in disguise. It's your value growing in the soil of absence. You don't always need to shout to be heard. Sometimes the quiet hits harder. But let's be real, it's not easy. Letting go of the chase feels like letting go of hope. It feels like surrender. But here's the truth. You're not giving up on them. You're giving up on draining yourself. And that difference is everything. You're choosing to pull your energy back, not because you don't care, but because you finally do. About you, about your peace, about your time. They can't feel your worth when it's constantly offered on a silver platter. They need to miss the meal. They need to go hungry for your energy, for your care, for your presence. And when that space opens up, when the noise fades and your voice is no longer there to soothe their ego, that's when the realization starts to crawl in. And it hits them slow. At night, when they scroll and your name isn't there. When they post and you don't react. When they reach out and you're not instantly available. That's when it begins. But don't do it for revenge. Don't do it to make them miss you. Do it to reclaim your center, to remember your power. Because chasing isn't connection. It's a performance, one you're done auditioning for. You're not here to prove your value to someone who had front row seats and still chose to look away. You're here to stand in your light and let them sit in the shadow they created. So if you're still chasing, stop. If you're still waiting, pause. If you're still trying to remind them who you are, remember it yourself first. And then go quiet, not with anger, not with malice, but with purpose. Because your silence isn't empty, it's full of self-respect. Say it with me now. I let them miss me. Write it in the comments. Type it like you mean it. Say it for every time you showed up for someone who didn't even notice. Say it for the you that kept giving even when you were drained. And if this hit you where it needed to, press that like button, subscribe if you're ready to stop performing and start protecting your peace. And stay with me, my friends, because what comes next, that's where the silence turns into strength. Number 4. Healing is your revenge. Let peace be the punishment. You don't need to destroy them, just outgrow them. My friends, read that again, because I know, deep down, you've probably imagined it. That day they come crawling back. That moment they see you winning, glowing, laughing without them, and their face drops. That fantasy where they finally realize what they lost, and you get to say, too late. Yeah, we've all gone there. But let me give you something better than fantasy. Healing. Real, grounded, unshakable healing. Because when you heal, when you truly evolve, when you rise without needing applause or revenge, that's the punishment they never saw coming. See, most people think revenge is loud, that you need to show them what they missed, post it, flaunt it, force it down their throat. But true power doesn't yell, it doesn't perform. True power glows, quietly, consistently, unapologetically. When you stop playing the game and start playing the long game, healing your heart, building your peace, owning your silence, that's when the shift happens. That's when your name starts echoing in places your presence hasn't been in months. They expected you to spiral. They thought you'd blow up their phone, post sad quotes, show up in their comments, try to win them back. But instead, you vanished. Not to run away, but to work, to get stronger, wiser, softer in the heart, harder in the boundaries. And when someone who thought they broke you sees that kind of peace, it rattles them deeply, because peace is confusing to those who expect chaos. Imagine this, they're checking your story. Yep, still watching, still lurking. They're expecting hints, subliminals, signs of struggle. But what they find is a version of you they've never met. Clear-eyed, calm, focused. You're not flexing, you're flourishing. You're not throwing shade, you're casting light. And suddenly, the very thing they used to control you, attention, silence, distance, doesn't work anymore. That's the moment they realize you didn't just move on, you leveled up. Healing is not just about moving past them, it's about moving into yourself. It's about looking in the mirror and finally seeing someone worth protecting, worth loving, worth choosing, not because someone else says so, but because you do. And yes, let's keep it real. Healing hurts. It's not glamorous. It's quiet nights and lonely days, and resisting that one text you know you could send. It's choosing your future over temporary validation. It's deleting the chat, archiving the photos, muting the triggers, not out of hate, but out of respect for your own mind. But every day you choose peace over pettiness, growth over games, healing over history. You win, silently, powerfully, unforgettably. You don't need to prove you've moved on. You just live like you have. You build routines. You hit the gym. You meditate. You go for walks that turn into prayers. You spend time with people who don't make you question your value. And slowly, the version of you they once knew becomes a memory they can't touch anymore. The new you, they wouldn't even know how to talk to you now. You intimidate them, not because you're trying to, but because you've stepped into a peace they've never met. The best part, when they do come back, because many of them do, it won't even feel like a win. It'll feel like a distraction. You won't crave their attention. You won't seek their validation. You'll smile, wish them well, and keep walking. Because when you've healed, you don't want them back. You want you back, and that's exactly who you found. Marcus Aurelius said, The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury. That's Stoicism in its rawest form. Don't fight fire with fire. Be the water. Be the still lake they can't disturb anymore. Be the peace they never appreciated, now turned into the life they no longer get to witness. Say it with me now. I heal, I rise. Write it in the comments. Let it echo beyond this screen. Say it for every version of you that broke and rebuilt. Say it for every time you wanted to clap back but chose silence. Say it because you are the victory. If this lit a fire in your chest, press that like button, subscribe to join a tribe that's done with playing small, and stay with me, my friends, because what comes next? That's when the silence starts making noise. Number 5, they watch you in silence. Never doubt that. They won't like, won't comment, won't text, but trust me, they see you. My friends, let's get one thing straight right now. They're watching you. Oh, not in the way that's loud or obvious, not with likes or hearts or "I miss you" texts, but in silence, in secrecy, behind locked screens and fake calm. They're watching, because curiosity is louder than pride. And silence, it doesn't mean they've moved on. It means they've moved into the shadows. They watch your stories and immediately swipe away like they weren't staring. They scroll through your page at 2 a.m., making sure not to double-tap anything from 32 weeks ago. They ask mutual friends how you're doing, casually, like they're just wondering. They type your name in the search bar like it's a ritual they swore they'd never repeat. And still, they'll act like you're forgotten. But what they don't realize is your peace is speaking louder than your presence ever did. Because here's what happens when you stop performing and start healing. They lose their power. You take back the stage they thought they owned. You stop reacting, and suddenly they don't know what part they're playing anymore. They're not the main character in your life. They're not even in the cast. And that rattles them. See, peace is haunting, especially to the ones who only knew how to control you through chaos. Your stillness shines a light on their instability. Your glow-up, spiritual, emotional, physical, becomes a mirror they weren't ready to look into, and the longer you remain silent, the louder your growth gets. It's not that they don't care, it's that they can't admit they do, because doing so would mean acknowledging what they lost, and pride doesn't like confession. But don't get it twisted. Just because they're silent doesn't mean they're absent. Just because they're not reaching out doesn't mean you're not running laps in their mind. Every post you make, every win you don't share with them, every new version of you they no longer get to touch, it hits hard. They may pretend not to care, but their silence is saturated with regret, with memory, with what-ifs they'll never say out loud. Let them watch, let them lurk, let them overthink every piece of content you casually post without a second thought. Because while they're busy decoding your stillness, you're busy building your empire. You're done performing for the audience that left the theater. You are the main event now, the moment, the mystery. Say it with me now. They see me anyway. Type it in the comments. Say it for every time you felt invisible, for every time they ghosted you and thought they'd forget. Show them, show yourself, show the world that you don't need their validation to be seen. And if this message struck a nerve, press that like button, subscribe if you're done being the one who watches and ready to be the one watched. And stay with me, my friends, because next we turn that silence into power. Number 6. You were their mirror. Now you're their shadow. They only shined because you reflected them. Now they sit in the dark. My friends, this one's going to hit deep because I know you were the light, the energy, the emotional glue holding it all together. You weren't just part of their world. You were the reason it made sense. You gave them reflection, a mirror they stood in front of that made them feel seen, strong, worthy, loved. And now that you're gone, now that your presence no longer props them up, the truth is starting to show. Let me say this loud. They weren't glowing on their own. They were shining because you were the source of the light. You were the one pouring affirmations into their emptiness, holding them during their storms, reminding them of their greatness when they were stuck in insecurity. But what they didn't realize is, you weren't just reflecting them, you were uplifting them. And now that the mirror is gone, the image fades, the illusion cracks. Without your energy, they don't look so powerful anymore. They don't feel so centered. They're not thriving, they're performing. Their curated little life on social media, that's not growth, that's camouflage. They post more now, not because they're happy, but because they're trying to look like they are, trying to convince the world and themselves that they didn't lose something irreplaceable. But you know better. You know what really held that connection together. You, your patience, your presence, your ability to stay calm while they panicked, to stay grounded while they spiraled. And the moment you pulled that energy back, the structure collapsed. Not instantly, but slowly, quietly. Behind all the filters and flexes, they're feeling the weight of their own absence. Because you weren't just a part of their life. You were the stability it depended on. Let me give you a metaphor, my friends. Picture a spotlight on a stage. The actor thinks the crowd is clapping for them, loving their performance. But what they forget is, the spotlight is what made them visible in the first place. Take away that light, and the performance ends. That's you. You were the spotlight. And now, they're standing in the dark, still acting, but no one's watching. They thought walking away from you would be freedom. What they didn't realize, it was their own unraveling. And sure, they'll pretend. They'll post the vacations, the selfies, the look how fine I am nonsense. But all of it? It's noise. Because silence never lies. And in their quiet moments, they feel the difference. They don't say it, but they miss the way they felt in your presence, the way they looked through your eyes, the version of themselves they only liked because you were reflecting the best parts of them back. Say it with me now. I was the light. Type it in the comments. Let it be your reminder that you were never the background character in their story. You were the source. If this truth slapped something awake inside you, press that like button. Subscribe if you're done being the mirror and ready to become the force. And stay with me, my friends, because next, we're flipping the whole emotional script. Number 7. Detachment is the highest form of attraction. The less you need them, the more they obsess. My friends, I want you to let that line echo in your bones, because this isn't just a cute idea. It's psychological warfare, emotional gravity. The moment you stop needing them is the moment they start needing you. That's not a trick. That's Stoic power. Want nothing. Need no one. Radiate everything. That's the energy shift that flips the entire game. You see, we've been fed this lie that closeness equals constant availability, that love means always being reachable, that if you're not texting, checking in, validating, chasing, you'll lose them. But let me break something wide open today. Nothing repels respect faster than emotional dependence. The moment they know you need their reply to feel okay, the power dynamic shifts, and you're no longer the mystery, they are. But here's the twist. When you detach, when your peace stops being up for negotiation, when you finally say, "I don't need you to act right for me to feel whole," boom, you become unforgettable. It's like trying to catch smoke. The harder they reach, the less they can grip, because you're no longer reacting to breadcrumbs. You're not dancing every time they toss you attention. You've stopped trying to decode their silence and started enjoying your own. And in doing so, you become magnetic, not by force, not by pretending, but by genuinely no longer placing your worth in their hands. Let me give you a visual. Imagine standing in front of a flame. The more you lean in, the hotter it gets, until you burn. But step back, and the flame starts reaching for you. That's what detachment does. It flips the fire. It makes them feel the absence of your need. And in that absence, they begin to crave the calm they once took for granted. But make no mistake, this isn't a game. Stoicism doesn't mean being cold or fake or distant just to spark interest. That's manipulation. This isn't about punishing them. This is about protecting your soul. Because the truth is, not everyone deserves access to your heart, especially the ones who only appreciated it when it was desperate. You're not detaching because you're bitter. You're detaching because you're better now. You've grown. You've realized your peace isn't a gift to be thrown around like candy. It's sacred. It's earned. And the right person? They'll rise to meet that frequency, not make you lower it just to be seen. So if you feel that old urge to text, to prove, to explain your silence, pause, take a breath. Remind yourself that you've got nothing to prove. They'll notice. Oh, they'll feel it. Because detachment leaves a silence that screams. And every time you don't react, every time you stay centered, every time you choose stillness over performance, they get more curious, more confused, more drawn in. Say it with me now. I detach, I attract. Drop it in the comments. Type it like a promise to yourself. Show them. Show yourself. Show the world that you're done begging to be chosen. And if this message lit something inside you, press that like button, subscribe if you're ready to walk in your quiet power, and stay with me, my friends, because next, we're stepping into emotional mastery, where silence isn't just a strategy, it's your language. Number 8. You are the storm they can't forecast. They thought you were soft. Now they realize you were silent thunder. My friends, let this one settle in your chest, because this is the full circle. This is where the version of you they underestimated steps fully into the light. They thought you were soft because you loved deeply, because you cared when they didn't, because you stayed when they were inconsistent, because you forgave what should have broken you. But what they didn't see was the storm building in your silence, the quiet strength rising while they confused your kindness for weakness. And now they're about to witness something they were never prepared for. You don't chase anymore. You don't explain. You don't wait for closure, because you became it. You realized that the storm they feared wasn't outside of them. It was inside you. And when you stopped trying to prove your worth, when you stopped begging to be seen, when you went still, that's when your power started shaking the ground beneath them, quietly, unapologetically. You were never soft, you were strategic. Your silence wasn't weakness, it was weather. Calm on the outside, lightning underneath. And now that they've lost access to your peace, they finally understand it wasn't the chaos that made you powerful, it was your control. Let me give you a picture, folks. Picture a clear sky right before the storm breaks. Still, beautiful, but holding everything. That was you. They walked away thinking you were predictable, harmless, replaceable. But now they feel it. In the tension, in the emptiness, in the echo of your absence. You're not a drizzle. You're not noise. You're not another what if. You are the storm they can't forecast, and it's too late for umbrellas. They'll miss you. Oh, don't get it twisted. Even if they pretend not to, even if their lips never say it, they'll miss the calm you brought, the way you stayed when they were unsure, the way your presence made them feel whole, even when they didn't deserve it. And that kind of missing? It doesn't come with tears. It comes with tight chests, restless minds, and late nights staring at your page, wondering how they let the storm pass without ever preparing for it. But you don't need that validation anymore. You're not looking for proof that they regret it. You've outgrown the need to be missed just to feel worthy. You've stopped performing. You've stopped waiting. You've stopped shrinking. And in doing so, you became the one thing no one saw coming, the one they'll never forget. Because here's the truth. Storms don't announce themselves. They just arrive. And when they do, they change everything. Say it with me now. I am the storm. Drop it in the comments. Say it for every time they underestimated you. Say it for every tear you turned into power. Say it because you no longer need to be understood. You are the understanding. And if this last message completed the shift for you, press that like button, subscribe if you've reclaimed your voice, and stay with me, my friends, because the storm isn't over. It's just getting started. And this time you're the one they'll never be ready for. And that, my friends, brings it full circle. You're no longer chasing closure. You are the closure. You're not seeking validation. You are the standard. Every silent step you take is louder than their noise will ever be. So, own your calm, stand in your power, and let your absence speak volumes. If this message hit your chest like truth, don't keep it to yourself. Press that like button, subscribe, and share this with someone who needs to remember their worth. We're not done rising. We're just getting started. Until next time, stay grounded, stay glowing, and remember, you are the storm.